There's a growing movement to help the people of Nagorno Karabakh who were forced out of their homes in 2023 return. CSI hosted a side event at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva on September 29th to talk about what international support for the right of return looks like. You can find the link to watch that full event in our show notes. But here on the podcast today, we get to go behind the scenes to hear the story of one of those speakers who is a leader in the displaced community. My name is Abby, and I'm your host here at the Christian Solidarity Podcast, where we stand as one with the body of Christ facing persecution around the world. In this episode, we'll get to hear a special conversation between CSI's Director of Advocacy, Joel Veldkamp, and Artak Beglaryan, one of the best-known leaders from Nagorno Karabakh. We talked about this ancient Armenian Christian land of Nagorno Karabakh in episode 1, if you want to hear more. Artak was the human rights ombudsman for the Republic of Nagorno Karabakh from 2018 to 2020. After that, he served as the Minister of State for the Republic of Nagorno Karabakh from 2021 until 2022. Then in 2023, he was one of the 120,000 people forced to flee Nagorno-Karabakh when the entire population was expelled as a result of ethnic cleansing by Azerbaijan. We're so grateful for Artak's leadership and his willingness to share his story.
Hello everyone, this is Joel Veldkamp from CSI. Today I'm in Geneva, Switzerland at the UN Human Rights Council, and I'm very happy to be joined by one of my personal heroes, Artak Beglaryan. Artak, welcome to the CSI podcast.
Thank you, Joel, for this invitation.
So 2 years ago, Artak, you and all the other Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh were forced to flee from your homeland. What did that look like for you? How did you get out of Nagorno-Karabakh?
Actually, the genocide or ethnic cleansing of our people started in 2020. And Azerbaijan occupied some parts of our land, and no Armenian remained there. Since 2020, there was a psychological terror by Azerbaijan against all Armenians, including ISIS-style beheading, executions, tortures, mutilation of bodies, killings of civilians and war prisoners, bombardment of civilian areas, critical infrastructure, and many other types of crimes, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. And also very intensive psychological and informational warfare against our people, including during the ceasefire. And during the blockade, this psychological terror continued. Plus, we were deprived of humanitarian aid and humanitarian supplies. From time to time, ICRC, Red Cross, and the Russian peacekeepers were supplying very limited primary products, food, medicine, etc. But since June of 2023, these supplies also stopped, interrupted by Azerbaijan, and there was no humanitarian product, goods coming in. And for more than 3 months, we didn't get anything, and we were physically and psychologically exhausted, seeing that we are helpless, nobody helps us. And on September 19 of 2023, encouraged by the international impunity, the Aliyev regime attacked our people and our defense army. Within 24 hours, they killed more than 220 persons, including 21 civilians, including 5 children. And our government and our army saying that nobody intervenes, including Russian peacekeepers, Armenia, Western world, UN mechanisms, just making only empty statements and words. Our government and army surrendered. During the blockade, Azerbaijan interrupted not only humanitarian aid, but also electricity and gas supplies from Armenia to Artsakh, Nagorno Karabakh. And since March, we didn't get any gas, and we had only limited electricity supplies from our local power plants. But on September 19, they attacked also the electricity supply system, and there was no electricity. They attacked also the communication system. There was no communication. They attacked also water system in certain communities. So even after the ceasefire surrender on September 20, for additional 4 days by the night of 24, we didn't get any electricity, any communication, and the blockade was continuous. And in this situation, the Azerbaijani forces were advancing to our communities. I mean, since the army was surrendered, disarmed, etc., and people were seeing that Azerbaijanis are entering their villages and their towns, and there was a huge panic because nobody was protecting us, including already our defense army. And in this situation, under this suffering, humanitarian suffering, physical security problems, and psychological warfare, Azerbaijan opened the Lachin corridor deliberately, and our people started fleeing. And on 25th of September, as a result of this panic and mismanagement and the Azerbaijani psychological warfare, over 240 Armenians killed as a result of fuel depot explosion. It was the only fuel depot, and it exploded because people in a panic were seeking some fuel in order to be able to drive through the Lachin corridor to Armenia to escape Azerbaijani forces.
I remember those days because I was in Switzerland actually, and I was watching this all unfold online through tweets and through messages from friends. And I remember when the gas station exploded and so many young men were killed.
It was a hell.
It was absolutely devastating.
Yeah, and they are also the victims of genocide and ethnic cleansing. And even additionally, over more than 70 persons died on the road of fleeing or forcible displacement because of the inhuman situation, because there was no water on the road, there was no food, the road took 30, 40, in some cases 50 hours to drive.
Yeah, I remember because I actually got to ride in a bus along this road when I was a student many years ago from Armenia to Stepanakert, to the capital of Artsakh. And it's not a long road. It takes about an hour and a half. But under these terrible conditions, when so many people were trying to get out of Artsakh at the same time, the drive was taking people 1 day, 2 days, sometimes even more. And as you said, Artak, about 70 people actually died on the road just because the journey was so long and so difficult. But what was that like for you, Artak?
For me, Azerbaijanis were targeting me always, both as a human rights defender and then state minister and then advisor to the state minister and president, because I was one of the voices presenting the crimes against our people, including on those days, giving interviews to the international media, tweeting, etc. And the Azerbaijani propaganda machine on those days were just aggressively targeting me, including saying that our forces should arrest this guy and punish, etc. In order to be very cautious, I fled, separated from my family, in order not to target them, my kids. I have 2 kids, 2 daughters, during that time 5 and 2 years old. And more than 27 hours, I didn't go out of the car in order not to be noticed by Azerbaijani forces and not to be abducted. And it was harsh, but also I was cautious, turning my mobile phone off. Also, we planned so our driving in order to cross or pass the Azerbaijani illegal checkpoint in the Lachen corridor during the night, not to be noticed. And I was lucky that Azerbaijani forces didn't notice or recognize me in the car, and we successfully passed the checkpoint and then Hakkari Bridge on the border. And once we crossed the bridge, after 100 meters, our car broke down and we couldn't go forward. The Armenian soldiers came to us and said, drive ahead, it's a dangerous place, but we couldn't restore it to go ahead.
So
Of the car.
Just after you crossed the border
just
into Armenia,
just after the bridge, yes.
The car breaks down.
Yeah, because actually we were going down prior to the checkpoint, and it was possible to go down.
So the bridge is at the bottom of a big valley lying in between the capital of Artsakh, Stepanakert, and Armenia. So
it's in a gorge.
So you got to the bottom of this gorge, and just on inertia alone, you coast across the border.
Yes,
and then
just
the car
we
breaks
crossed
down.
and the car stopped, and we waited there for 3 hours, not going out, not to be noticed by Azerbaijani forces. And then a truck of a friend of us came and took us to the first Armenian village.
And at that time, were there many, many other Armenians around you trying to get through, trying to get across the bridge?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it was serious jam everywhere. And Azerbaijani soldiers were checking the cars very carefully, detailed. And in many cases, they were stopping all the men, checking the passports. In many cases, they were asking some questions. Where you served? Did you fight during the war, etc.?
Because the people of Artsakh, beginning in the late 80s, they had to fight, depending on how you count, 3 or 4 wars for their freedom.
Which means that almost each male at least served in the army.
And from the Azerbaijani point of view, all of these men are terrorists for having fought. So there was a real threat that the entire male population of Nagorno-Karabakh...
It was, and as I described, there was a psychological terror just after the surrender on September 20 and the ceasefire. There were such rumors and some threats by the Azerbaijani propaganda machine that all males who ever fought against Azerbaijan or served in the army will be arrested and punished. And just after that, you would notice in Artsakh that everyone was burning uniforms, military uniforms, in order not to have evidence of service, and burning even photos with military uniforms, because people didn't know the Lachen corridor would be opened and they would be able to flee. They thought that Azerbaijanis will come and check and investigate all the families and all the houses. That's why there was a panic, and everyone, not everyone, but overwhelming majority were doing their best to get rid of any kind of evidence of military service.
And as you referred to a little bit at the beginning, Artak, Azerbaijan attacked Artsakh in 2016, in 2020, in 2022 they attacked Armenia itself.
Then in 2023.
In 2023, the final ethnic cleansing happened.
Yes.
But in every single one of these attacks, any Armenians who were caught behind enemy lines who were caught by the Azerbaijanis were either executed or kidnapped. It was everyone.
Or if they were not killed or executed under captivity, they were brutally tortured.
Yes. And so on September 20, 2023, we find ourselves in a situation where 120,000 Armenians are surrounded by Azerbaijani troops. There's no communications, there's no electricity, you can't move between villages.
There is no bread, there is no oil, there is no medicine. I mean, since August already, there are long bread lines. I mean, lines for bread. And every day, over 10-15% of the demand was satisfied.
And this is very important to understand because CSI is very active at the UN Human Rights Council, and every time there's a session, we address the ethnic cleansing of Nagorno-Karabakh. And sometimes the Azerbaijani diplomatic delegation will respond to us. They'll take the floor and say, CSI is lying, or CSI is trying to spread hate with these lies. And on one occasion, they said CSI is distorting the reality about the voluntary departure of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh. This was no voluntary departure.
It can't be voluntary departure because, not CSI, but let's say International Association of Genocide Scholars said that it was a genocide, both the blockade and forcible displacement, saying that it was a forcible displacement, deportation. Or Freedom House, one of the top human rights organizations, said that it was an ethnic cleansing, deliberate, pre-planned, and systemic policy to cleanse Armenians, ethnically Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh. It's not CSI saying, it's not Armenians saying, it's top specialized organizations saying, or European Parliament said it was ethnic cleansing.
When you look at the facts objectively, it's abundantly clear that the intention of the Azerbaijani government was to get rid of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh by making it impossible for them to live there and by killing them. And that is precisely the definition of genocide in the Genocide Convention.
It is. During the blockade, it was January 2023, Aliyev publicly said that the road is closed. The road is open. Whoever wants can leave, not return, but can leave only, saying that if you don't want to be Azerbaijani citizen, then leave our land, which means that it's already open confession to say that we are pushing you out to flee. One day, it was August, at an interview with Euronews. By the way, Azerbaijan is one of the owners of Euronews, please note.
Well noted.
Yes. In August, when already they stopped for 2 months, even Red Cross to supply medication and food to our people, Aliyev said that we stopped Red Cross to supply medication and food because we found some phones with the ICRC drivers, and they were doing phone smuggling. So it means that for 10-20 phones, Aliyev stopped supply of medication and food to very vulnerable 120,000 people. This is confession of crime. After our forcible displacement, 3 weeks after, Aliyev had a night fire at the square of occupied Stepanakert, our capital city, together with a group of Azerbaijani youth. And in the video that they published, Aliyev said that now when we are already get rid of Armenians physically from Karabakh, now it's the time to eradicate the aura of Armenians from Karabakh. What is it? It's clear example of genocidal intent. I mean, there are lots of other examples.
Artak, there was a detail in your story of your escape from Nagorno-Karabakh that you said you turned your mobile phone off. And that reminds me of the first time that you and I met each other. That was about 2 months later, and you were at the United Nations for a different event. But we took the opportunity to meet each other, and we had a private meeting the night before on the UN grounds.
Yeah.
We just sat in the cafe, and the next day, a picture of you and my boss, the president of CSI, John Eibner, was circulated on Azerbaijani Telegram channels, meaning someone in the Azerbaijani government knew that you would be there and sent one of their diplomats or one of their employees to take your picture and then circulate that picture on Telegram to try to scare you.
Yeah.
And we weren't scared, of course. We're not scared of our pictures being taken, but it shows that perhaps they actually knew you were coming.
We are so scared, that's why we are now here.
You certainly have not stopped moving since this disaster.
Because that's my life mission, that's my service, that's my value system, to serve to the truth. And I'm very thankful to the Christian Solidarity International and to all of your supporters and followers to help the vulnerable people, because we are quite vulnerable and we are now stateless, I would say, and we are homeless. And unfortunately, geopolitics among countries and great powers doesn't allow us even to raise our voice. And we are very, very ignored by governments. But we are thankful that there are such organizations like you, giving us platforms, helping us, raising our voice, and giving us voice to protect our rights.
You're a very principled person. You're a very determined person. You never stop working for truth and justice. How have you personally been affected by this conflict?
Actually, my determination and my value system have been considerably impacted by my personal life. Firstly, I saw the war of 1990s. Let's say in the beginning, we had a siege for more than 6 months, and in parallel with the siege, total siege and blockade, we had also bombardment and shelling by the Azerbaijani forces of all kind of civilian areas. I remember that. I remember even when Azerbaijani aircrafts came and bombarded the building next to our residential building, and I was in the yard.
And how old were you, Artak, at that time?
I was at that time, I guess, 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember some moments of such brutal times. But fortunately, we were successful with support of Armenia and Armenians to win the war, liberate our territories, and have a ceasefire in 1994. And we built our statehood. But during that war in 1993, when I was 4.5 years old, my father was killed by Azerbaijani forces, with some witnesses, I would say, by Grey Wolves, Turkish nationalistic criminal group, who were taking part in the war from the Azerbaijani side.
Yeah, this is a transnational Turkish nationalist group that
yes, it's a terroristic group.
Yeah.
And then after the war in 1995, when I was 6, I lost my eyesight as a result of landmine explosion. Together with my friends, I was playing, and a friend of mine found a landmine, Azerbaijani landmine, and didn't know that it was a landmine, hammered the landmine, it exploded, and immediately I lost my eyesight. Fortunately, doctors managed to save my life. And I had education at a special school in Yerevan for blind children. It was not an easy life for me, but I became educated, very independent person. And then when I was 16, my mother passed away as a result of heart attack. And it was due to the tragedies that my mother faced, also because of the conflict. But then I was quite determined, and I had my mission and willpower to get good education in Yerevan in political science. And I went to Greece, then to the UK. I studied at University College London, one of the top universities. I studied there international relations and security studies. And then I went to Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy of Tufts University in Boston, and studied there diplomacy and public policy, and returned to my homeland, to Artsakh, having the belief and the mission to serve to my people, to peace, to human rights. And I believe that I have something to give to my people. And so far, I believe that it's possible to have dignified peace. And with all these kind of tragedies, plus forcible displacement, blockade, etc., whatever I saw and documented for my people, I don't hate Azerbaijanis. And I understand that there are also Azerbaijani families facing tragedies. And the ordinary people don't want war in any side. And they are also hostage of Azerbaijani Aliyev dictatorship. That's why I'm saying we all need peace. We all deserve peace, but we want international support to have just peace, dignified peace. And all the voices should be heard and respected, especially the voices of the victims.
So on that point, I recently had a conversation with a prominent American Christian leader who I don't know very well and doesn't know CSI's issues very well. But I mentioned that we were doing this event at the UN and said, oh, that conflict is so awful. But thank goodness it's all sorted now, right? And I told him, no, actually, it's not sorted now. But Artak, what would you say to someone who maybe saw the big meeting at the White House or has seen a headline about a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Has this all been sorted, actually?
No, unfortunately, no. Why? Because it was a show, and it was a part of the conflict, but not the full conflict settlement. It addressed, the Washington Declaration and Agreement with the US mediation addressed only some elements of the conflict based on the positions of the Armenian government and the Azerbaijani government, and based on the geopolitical interests of the US, Armenia, Azerbaijan. But the key problem is that the core victims of this conflict, the Nagorno Karabakh people, are fully ignored and out of this peace deal, which means that this peace deal cannot be considered as comprehensive, just, inclusive peace deal, which means that still there are at least 150,000 people waiting for peace, waiting for their return, waiting for their security and their rights and justice. Even more, I would say that even if we return to our home, there are international guarantees, etc. Another key element of the conflict is not resolved. It's the anti-Armenian hatred state policy of Azerbaijan, which is the primary ideological pillar for all kind of anti-Armenian crimes by Azerbaijan. So even if there is no Nagorno-Karabakh people, between Armenians and Azerbaijanis, peace is impossible without eradicating the anti-Armenian ideology in Azerbaijan. And this is also something to address by the international community. But again, the other topic is our return. In many parts of our homeland, there are already Azerbaijani families illegally settled in our homes. And these are all violations of international law, and including the UN International Court of Justice order, which very openly and directly said that the people should return, the cultural heritage and private property should be protected. But nobody cares about that. That's why we are raising our voice. We respect the efforts of the American administration. We highly appreciate any kind of settlement or resolution of certain elements of the conflict, but we also urge and demand inclusive and just and dignified peace deal, taking note and considering our voice, our needs, and our rights.
Mm-hmm. Artak, we're very happy that you were able to come to be with us here in Geneva at the UN this week. What are you hoping will come out of this visit to the UN Human Rights Council?
There was a side event organized by you and with engagement of Swiss parliamentarians to have that event and to talk at the UN Human Rights Council on our right to return. And it was very important that Swiss Peace Initiative for Nagorno-Karabakh is working to this direction in order to have international forum with Swiss mediation on the return of the Nagorno-Karabakh people. And this is important for us to raise our voice that, look, peace is not there, despite of all kind of propaganda by international media, Azerbaijani side, etc. But we want peace much more than anyone because we suffered much more than anyone as a result of this conflict. But we say that we are waiting for peace. We are waiting for our return. Peace will mean addressing the consequences of the return. So this event helps us to get closer to that goal and to start talking and exploring international mechanisms on how to organize our return, with what conditions, when, with what kind of guarantees, what kind of engagement of international community, etc. So we still hope that with your support, it's possible to start establishing certain international mechanisms based on Swiss Peace Initiative and to start preparing the conditions and the environment for our return. With small steps, I believe that it's possible to get closer to that goal.
Yeah, we believe the same thing. We know the road ahead is going to be long and very difficult, but CSI is committed to supporting the people of Artsakh until they can go home in safety. And a while ago, Artak, you mentioned that you do have something to offer to your people. I also think you have a lot to offer to the whole Christian world, and the people of Artsakh have a lot to offer to the whole Christian world. We have a lot to learn from them. And we at CSI believe one of the reasons this issue is so important for us is that the Armenian nation is one of the oldest parts of what we would call the body of Christ. Their translations of the Bible are some of the oldest that we have. Their church is one of the oldest continuously existing Christian religious traditions that there is. And if the Christian world can't act to help our brothers and sisters in Artsakh, in Armenia, that says something very bad about our politics.
And Artsakh itself is very rich of Armenian and Christian heritage. Just to imagine, within over 10,000 square kilometers, we have over more than 6,000 monuments and more than 400 churches. And there are very important important churches. For example, the head of John the Baptist is buried in Artsakh, in Gandzasar Church.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it is in Gandzasar Church.
I've been to Gandzasar actually, but I missed that.
We have
part.
churches from the 4th century, several churches, and many other valuable things for the Armenian and much broader Christian world. Artsakh is very important, very sacred for us.
So we're grateful to you, Artak, for your witness to justice and to truth, and CSI is committed to supporting you and your people for as long as it takes. Artak Beglaryan, thank you so much for joining us on the Christian Solidarity Podcast.
CSI is continuing to directly support the people of Nagorno-Karabakh who were forcibly expelled from their homes. Artak mentioned the young men who were killed and wounded in the Stepanakert gas station explosion during the forced displacement. CSI helped many of them get treatment to regain use of their hands and recover from the terrible burns they suffered. We also support the Caroline Cox Rehabilitation Center, which continues to care for people with disabilities from Nagorno-Karabakh who are now living in exile in the Republic of Armenia. There's a lot of different avenues of support we're providing, and we'd love for you to join us in contributing. You can learn more about our aid work and our international advocacy on these issues on our website at csi-int.org. One more thing. We know that these issues are heavy and dense, and so if you have questions, send us a message or leave a comment on your listening platform where we can keep the conversation going. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Abby McDougall, and this is the Christian Solidarity Podcast.